Okay, welcome to episode 4 of Run to the Hills. And it's great to be back for another episode. And we're looking forward to chatting this morning, aren't we, Eddie? And catching up on what's going on. And
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And just wanted to give an update. We've now got 739 people on our Facebook Run to the Hills group. And we've got 285 subscribers on our YouTube channel. So thank you very much for everyone who's joined either of those or both of those. And we look forward to getting a few more in the next few weeks. So I thought we'd start, Eddie, by just having a little chat about how our training is going. Last week, we told people that we were both doing the South Downs Way, which was now it's 9 weeks tomorrow. So just any interesting runs this week and your training? Any tips that you can pass on to me?
Flying, John.
Oh,
I'm flying. Might as well retire now. Yeah, I've had the kids have gone back to school this week, a few days. They don't have school in France on a Wednesday in France, so they went back for one day and then had a day off straight away. So, but I've managed to sort of resurrect the old training cycle routine a little bit, and I got out on Tuesday, dropped the kids at school first time in 6 months, and had a to-do list as long as my arm, but decided to ignore that. And I have a lovely group of mums that we try and meet up about once a week to do some big mountain runs. And so I grabbed a few of them, and I'd seen my neighbour, who's a runner, who I don't actually know, but I Strava stalk him. I don't know if that's illegal, but he'd done this amazing route up on a ridge that I'd never been up. I'd never been able to find the path. So I tried to download it onto my watch, and I messaged him to say, I'm going to do this route. And he's like, well, I went the wrong way. So don't go the way I went on this bit. So you can imagine what happened. So we were delirious with excitement at having dropped the kids off, and went off, and I was like, I got this route, guys, just follow me. And after about an hour and a half, we hit this new path, and I found the path straight away. I was like, it's amazing. And it went up through all these thousands and thousands of blueberry bushes. And it was all these wild horses were around us, the cloud all around us. And I was like, it's amazing. Climbed up and up and up. It is about 1,000 meters of climbing, going up to this ridge where I thought I was just going to drop down onto a track the other side, bring us around in a nice circle. So we got up onto this ridge, and you know, in the mountains, sometimes the cloud comes in and you get really good visibility, and then the cloud sort of really quickly comes in, you can't see anything. So we got up on this ridge, and I was like, it's amazing, this new route. Looked over, sheer drop down about another 1,000 meters. Not the path I had planned on bringing us up. So basically I'd taken everyone up this sort of like goat horse track, and it wasn't the right track at all. Clouds coming in, and we could sort of, one of those runs where you're like, we could probably get down there, scramble down there. Eddie 5 years ago would have probably done that, but I always see the headlines of the Daily Mail saying mum of 3 had to be rescued from sheer slope in time for school run. So we decided we didn't want to come all the way down, so we did a sort of long track, ended up coming down through this bracken. It took us about an hour to come down on our butts, holding onto this bracken to find the track that we just came off, and we could have just done. Anyway, it was brilliant. It was so much fun just to be out with like no responsibilities, no kids. It was still like 4 hours on our feet by the time we'd finished the run. And I love an adventure in training when there's no like, it doesn't matter. So we did that. But then of course that slightly impacted on the next few days, because my legs were so sore from sliding down this really steep bracken field. And but it was fun. And I'm feeling quite good, a little bit tired. You get that sort of, this is maybe like the 3rd week of training, and you start to think this feels a little bit relentless, because you never feel fully fresh. You're going to tell me now you feel really fresh and you feel really good.
Well, I must admit, I took your advice to heart last week when you said that the South Downs Way is a very runnable course. So I thought, right, I need to get back to the club, because on a Monday night, we have a club session, a fartlek session with Kilbarcan. And obviously it's been not been on since March. But fortunately, on Monday, it was our first night. And that also coincided with our 35th wedding anniversary. So
you old romantic.
So I said to Katrina, what you fancy doing? And she said, oh, let's go to the club. So we both went along and we joined the club run. And it's great because I've got a good group of friends there that I've not seen for months, been in touch with, but not seen. And so we met in the car park. We were all socially distanced. There was about 15 of us. We're all standing in a semicircle, 2 meters apart. And then we do a session where we do a couple of miles warm up, a few stretches, a few sprints and things, strides. And then we do a session. And this week it was 15 times 2 minutes with a 1 minute recovery. So it's
huge.
Yeah. Well, it's always 30 minutes. It always adds up to 30 minutes. Whether it's
30 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Whether it's 10 by 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever. But this week it was 15 by 2. And it's great because within the group, I'm probably somewhere in the middle probably. So there's a few a little bit slower and there's some faster than me. So you start off and the faster runners go past after a minute or so. And then I try and catch up. So there's always someone to catch and there's always someone chasing you. So it really keeps the effort up. But it was so good just to get back. But it's amazing, isn't it, Eddie, how the next day you can feel your calves in a different way, can't you? Because when you do more of a speed session, you know, you run slightly differently, don't you?
Funnily enough, my session this week was 10 by 2 minutes. I only did 10 though, John. Now I feel a failure, but mine were uphill. Mine were uphill.
Okay, so, I'll let you off then.
But today, so I did that yesterday, and today my legs I get that like high hamstring that I'm like, so I must run differently when I try. Yeah. Because the rest of the time, I must run really lazily because I'm not trying at all. And that's why speed sessions are so good, because you are running properly rather than flopping around as we do so much. But that sounds a great session. And you were stiff the next day. Well,
no, I wasn't too stiff. I could just feel the calves. Yeah. But then on a Wednesday now, I'm working from home because of the COVID situation. So Wednesday's an admin day for my active schools work, which means then I'm going out. I go out about 5:45 and I can do a 2-hour run before work really. And so I'll go up on the Braes. And for the first time this year, I needed a head torch after the summer. So I go through woods for a bit and I definitely needed a head torch at 6 o'clock. So I think that run's going to get darker and darker over the next few weeks, but that's good. Yeah. That's good training as well, isn't it?
Can you get on the trails quite easily?
Yeah. From a mile from the house, I can be in woods. In fact, I've seen deer within 1.5 miles of the house. So it's really nice. And then I've got this lovely loop up on the Braes, and it can be anything up to, I did a 25-mile run during lockdown. You know, it's quite an extensive area up there, and it's within sight of the house almost. So it's great.
That's brilliant.
Okay, so that's our training, and that looks as though it's going well. So well done. And I'm concerned, to say the least, about your about your speed. Yeah. Right. I thought I'd just mention Donnie Campbell. Donnie Campbell, we've been mentioning the last couple of weeks, and he finished his round of the Munros. And what is incredible, Eddie, is that he finished in 31 days, 23 hours and 2 minutes. And his goal was 33 days. So he was a full day inside. But what I found amazing, this time last week, he was a day behind his schedule. And he made that up and he got ahead of it. And you know what? The last 48 hours, he didn't sleep. He ran through the last 2 nights. I went to bed one night and I was looking at his tracker and I thought it was about 11 o'clock and he was still going. I thought he's halfway up a mountain. He must be carrying on. I looked the next day and he got to the top of Ben Wyvis at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then he went straight down and then went straight on to the next day. Incredible.
Incredible. I can't wait to hear how he did that. And also how his crew managed that as well.
Yeah.
Because his wife must have been up and feeding him. And did he have a buddy runner with him then? Those last few?
I think his wife. I've certainly seen pictures of his wife with him on the top of the last one. But I think if he'd finished at 3 in the afternoon, he might have had a few more. But finish at 5 in the morning, and that Ben Hope is as far north as that's the furthest north Munro. So it's not easy to get to. So I don't suppose there was many people hanging around at 5 in the morning to welcome him. But I'm really hoping to get Donnie on either next week or the week after as a live interview one evening. So I'll put details on that. I'm waiting to hear back from him. Obviously, I would imagine there's lots of people wanting to speak to him and interview him.
Imagine he's asleep.
Yes, I hope so. Yeah.
In the van.
I know. That's right.
I'm not driving back. I'm not driving back.
Yeah. But just an incredible performance. And it's been on BBC News, and I'm sure there'll be lots of interviews with him, but hopefully we'll get ours with him as well, which will be incredible. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is our competition. Last week we asked readers, listeners, watchers to give us their thoughts on Did Not Finish. And we had some amazing entries. So do you want to just sort of highlight some of them, and then I'll announce the winner?
Yeah, I mean, we should maybe say how we sort of choose, and we both read them and we sort of discuss them before we start recording the podcast. And we talk about quite a few of them, don't we? It's a real, it's amazing when you sort of, sometimes you know people and sometimes I know people, and you tell me the backstories, and we love reading them all. And we never agree, which also I think is amazing. It's great. So there are a couple of people that we wanted to mention. You're going to talk about the winner, but we loved Andy Norman's. He actually gave a list of quite a few sort of bullet points of advice about a DNF and how to handle it and what to do. So if you haven't read through them yet, it's definitely worth spending a minute just reading what he wrote. And then another personal favourite of mine was Simon Middleton, who a couple of DNFs, and he called his wife, who just told him to get on with it. And I loved that. So he put his learnings were always listen to the wife. And then just really basically he put, take a seat, grab some food, have a think, and you might just get going again. And I thought that's really just normal, totally sound, basic advice. But that is what most people need to do. Anybody going for the Thames Path this weekend, relentless, long, 100 flat miles, you get to a checkpoint, take a seat, have some food, have a think, and get going again. Lots of people saying don't pull out at checkpoints. Get going again, and then see how that goes, because it's all too easy at a checkpoint, isn't it? Maybe not nowadays, because you can't actually sit down in them. So that'll be interesting in Thames Path. Yeah. So do you want to tell us? I need to do the drum roll.
Yes. Yeah.
The winner.
Well, yeah, the winner, again, this is someone I met on the Hardmoors races. And this girl, Nikki Carr-Walls, she ran the 160 when I did the 110 a number of years ago. And on the experience of finishing that 160, she thought, I can do anything. And on the back of that, she's got 4 kids, and she did her A-levels. She retrained as a teacher and is now teaching. And this is what she wrote, which we both thought was just really great advice and great experience. She said, I've had a few DNFs, but they were all looking back with good reason. I've experienced everything from stopping because I was hating the race and heart wasn't in it, to being delirious 46 miles into the Hardmoors 55. I'd covered 52 miles by then due to the confusion. I was diagnosed with pneumonia the next day. I DNF'd the West Harlem Way at Glencoe when I thought I could finish it 14 weeks after breaking my leg. It wasn't the injury that got me, but the lack of fitness. Sheer stubbornness alone got me to the start line. But for me, ultra running is all about pushing to my absolute limits, seeing how much my body can take. So if I never DNF'd, would I really be ever pushing to that limit? And we both thought that was good, didn't we? That aspect of, okay, she's learned from those to what she has DNF'd. But I just love that sort of last sentiment of wanting to push to her limits. And if you don't DNF, maybe you've never quite got there. And that was one of the things that Andy Cole mentioned as well. Again, a good friend. And he said to me a few times, if you never have a DNF, does that mean that you've never quite sort of tried to sort of push to the limits, as it were? So anyway, so there'll be a prize coming to Nikki, and we will have another competition coming up in a few minutes. But before we do that, we wanted to give our next top tip. And this one was that you've written a great blog, which will be on the Cheer Charge page, and we'll put a link to it. So just tell us your thoughts about flexibility and planning and training.
Yeah, I said to you, didn't I, a couple of weeks ago, I'd love to do this, do an episode about flexibility. And when I talk about flexibility, I'm not talking about Jane Fonda bendy legs. Well, it could be.
Yeah.
Wish I was more flexible in my hamstrings, especially, but more about flexibility in your training plan, in your races, in life. The reason I started talking about this was about 10 days ago. I had my long run to do, and I try and do my long run during the weeks because the weekends are so busy with the kids, but I hadn't been able to do it. And so it got to Sunday, still hadn't done my long run. And it's sort of a staple ingredient, I find, to a training plan is you have your tempo run or whatever, a session a week, plus the long run. And I do like to do a long run a week, whatever that long run looks like in your training plan. It might just be 60 minutes, but sort of focused long run where I can go out with a pack on and fuel and just sort of remind myself that I'm an ultra runner. And it got to the Sunday and the kids had all sorts of things. There were birthday parties and activities and my husband was working. It was all busy. I was like, I wanted to get 17 miles done. How am I going to do this? So I ended up doing it in sort of 3 parts. I had to get dogs out as well. So I ended up doing it sort of some miles in the morning with the dogs. Then while the kids had a cartoon after lunch, I went on the treadmill and did some more boring facial collapse miles. And then when my husband finished work, I went out again in the evening to finish off the long run. And I think I even started the evening session on the treadmill while he was still working, got 5 miles done. And then I was like, right, I've only got 4 more to do on the road. It sounds balmy when I talk about it, but I mentally, for me, I wanted to get that long run done and I did it. But at the end of the day, I was a bit disappointed in myself because I felt like, was that a bit cheating? Because I wasn't out for 3 hours. I sort of broke it down. So in some ways it's easier because you're not out there plowing through for 3 hours. And then I was like, Eddie, give yourself a break. You've just managed to fit in 17 miles in a day when you were looking after the kids. You had everything going on. You did all that and you put 17 miles in. And though it wasn't the long run and perhaps the training was a bit different because, you were probably ran the miles faster than if I'd done 17 miles off the bat, but you still got it done and you should still tick that box that, yep, you had that many miles in your legs. And does it really matter if you did how you did it? So I sort of then got thinking, and I think I messaged you going, I think it'd be really good right now as well, especially to talk about being flexible in our training and what that means to us, what that looks like, and how that also helps us in ultra races as well, that when things go wrong or when splits aren't there, when we're a bit slower than we planned, or if our stomach goes, how we deal with that and how that looks like, and how we shouldn't see change as, the jets are going overhead. Can you hear that?
Yeah. Impressive.
We shouldn't see change or adaptability as a weakness. We should actually see it as a strength and how it can help us as ultra runners. Actually, if we change our plan, it is a sign of strength and it's a sign of fitness and commitment to a long-term plan. And so, now I'm a busy mum. I've got, lots of things going on. I could fit in lots in my day, and being flexible in my training plan is absolutely key to me staying injury-free, to being healthy, to being happy. And I really struggled after my 3rd baby. I came back and I raced for England within 8 months. And I was rigid to that training plan. And, but I don't think that was very long-term. I don't think that was a great idea because I raced to get back to fitness. I plowed through those miles. But I didn't think, what's going to happen a year on down the line if you haven't spent your time building back up, because I was so focused on that goal. I'm really happy I did it. I wouldn't change it anyway, but I learned from it. And now definitely being flexible in that training plan and not seeing it as like, if I go out, if I miss a session, that the whole world is going to crumble and I'm going to now not finish the race because I didn't get that easy 45 minutes in. Or if I go out and do a session and I'm terrible and I'm not hitting the paces because I'm tired, do I rethink the session or do I just keep plowing on and see what happens? And I talk a bit about just heading out for the warm-up sometimes, and you just head out for the warm-up, and if you don't feel like, the body's not there, especially as we get a little bit older, and we're like, no, I need an extra day. I follow Ian Sharman on Strava, who's over in America, and he used to be he set up the Centurion coaching with James, who I work for as well, and he's brilliant. If you want to follow someone, and he'll often go out for sessions and then put, no, it wasn't there, I'm going to do it again tomorrow, or aborted long run, because he is really flexible in his training. And I think that is real kudos to an athlete who's thinking long term, who's thinking sustainability. And I think if you can be like that in your training plan, when it comes to a race, you can then be as well kind to yourself if things don't go wrong. You're used to thinking on your feet. You're used to troubleshooting ahead, thinking what's going to happen. And I talk a bit in the blog about how that reflects into life as a parent, you know, looking ahead. This is going to be a disaster happening, abort the mission, all sorts of stuff like that. So I just wanted to kind of touch base with people and be like, especially at the moment, being flexible and looking after yourselves and looking after each other is going to be key. But perhaps the next couple of years as life as an athlete and life racing is really different. And I know for people who are rigidly, you know, I coach a lot of people who love their training plan and they will do what is written on the sheet, and if it goes wrong, it's a disaster, and it takes, you know, days for us to talk it through. And so I'm always trying to, like, you know, educate them, you know, this isn't a disaster, we're learning from it and we're moving forward. But it's kind of easy for me to say now, because that's where I am now, and I've never raced rigidly to a plan. I often Debs and I talked about our South Downs Way strategy yesterday, which is top secret, obviously, John. But she does all the splits between all the checkpoints and stuff. And I just go with it. I don't even really have a watch on. I turn my watch on for the Strava kudos at the end, but I won't look at my watch throughout the race. So, but I know you're a little bit more, perhaps, a bit more focused. I don't want to say rigid, focused on your plan and on your racing splits. So do you find that hard to change if things go wrong, or what's your experience?
Definitely. I think it was really funny. I'm smiling away sort of listening to that, because I know that's something I need to learn, and I think I am learning. But I would say when I started ultra running, I love a plan. I'm like Debs. I have my splits, and I know exactly. And I think when I was running, you know, probably my best about 10 years ago when I was 50, when I did a couple of sub 20 West Highland Ways. And I could almost tell my support team exactly to the minute where I was going to reach each checkpoint. And I had my training was very much, you know, I set it out 5 sessions a week. This is what I was going to do. I haven't got, you know, our kids are all grown up and left now, so we haven't got the same responsibilities, so I can plan things out. So I would say I was very rigid, and probably so much so that if I had a niggle or I was tired, I just plowed on. And I have tried to be a bit more sensible, particularly as I get older. I've got to respect the fact that if I go for a 20-mile run, I need to be careful the next day or two, because that's when I'm going to get probably an injury. So I'd like to think I'm a bit more flexible now. But I would say in my racing, I said, so for example, the West Highland Way, I've got splits every 2 or 3 miles for the whole route. And I love it. And I have these little mini splits. And so all I have to do is run for 35 minutes to the next one. And then I've got 40 minutes to the next one. And when it's working well, it's brilliant, because it's so positive, and I get there and I'm a minute ahead of my schedule, and then the miles go away, and it's brilliant. What is hard for me, and what has been hard for me, is when it's gone wrong. There was one West Highland Way where I was aiming for sub 20 again, and I ended up 22 and a half hours. I still turned it round in the end, but I had a really bad time. And I remember coming into Bridge of Orkney, and I was about 45 minutes down on my schedule, and it was starting to play with my head. And it was the year that England played in the World Cup, and I'd watched the game the night before. And Sven-Göran Eriksson was the manager. We were 0-0. I've forgotten who we were playing now. I think Colombia or somewhere. And he didn't change anything. He just kept the same team. And I remember thinking, come on, you've got to bring some subs on, change things around. And I thought about that as I came into Bridge of Orkney. And my support team said, right, John, you need to have a longer stop here. You know, you need to do something different. So I had a hot chocolate. I had some ham. I ate something which I've never eaten before in a race. And then I did it. Things turned around. And that was a big lesson for me, because I'd always thought I would never, ever try anything on a race that I've not done in training or in practice. but I just needed to do something because it was going downhill, and I was able to turn it around. So I'd like to think that I am learning. It's taken me a long time. Yeah.
I think the thing about flexibility is it's not skiving off. You know, it's not like, oh, I'm not going to do that. It's just always, and I will stick to my training plan. You know, like I said, I've got those 17 miles to do. I want to do them. The goal will always be there. It's just the path that you get there might be a bit different, and it's okay. You know, that straight path, you see all those graphs, don't you, with like what you imagine ultra running to be, and then it's all squiggly. Yeah. And I think if your path is squiggly at the moment, that's a very scientific word, squiggly, that's fine, and to stick with it, and just to keep your eyes focused on where you're going. And it might be that you go around the corners, you go backwards, you have a huge leap forward, you do really well, and then the next week it's not so well. But you keep focused on that end goal all the time. It's just how we get there might look a bit different, and I think that's what I was trying to say in the blog, that it's not, there's no right way, there's no wrong way, and it's just really about being listening to your body all the time. So yeah, I'd love to hear other people's thoughts about that too.
Just going to say one more thing. I think that idea of, you know, if you have a plan and then you don't do it, you feel as though you're skiving. That was a good word. And I think one of the things that I do now a bit more is I make my plan a little bit more flexible. Yeah. So that instead of saying that on a Wednesday, I'm going to run 10 miles, I might just put on the plan, run, you know, an off-road run.
Yeah.
And then, so if I only end up doing 5 rather than 10, I don't feel as though I've skived. And it could just be a mental thing, but that makes a difference to me, because I think if I've said I'm going to run 10 miles and I only run 7, I feel as though I've skived, I've missed out. So I've tried to be a bit kinder to myself. And that's one of the words that you've used a few times in these chats. And so that if I don't do 10, then I don't feel so bad, you know. And I think it's trying to get that little bit of flexibility in my training. So there'll be some things in my week that will be a bit more maybe rigid, you know,
non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable. Yeah. Whereas there's other runs which, if I am, you know, if I had a long day at work, like at the moment, I'm doing a lot more delivery. We normally coordinate a lot more, but on a Monday, Tuesday, I'm cycling all day with groups out of kids. Thursday, I'm on my feet all day doing orienteering things. So when I ran last night after my full day of work, it was struggling, and I'd hoped I was going to do 6 or 7, and I ended up doing 5. And when I ran with Katrina, and we just chatted the whole way around and just did an easier run. And I think that was the right thing to do, you know, because if I'd ploughed on to try and do maybe a tempo 6-mile run, it would have, I was tired starting off. So yeah, that flexibility. So as you said, we'd like to hear what other people think. These are some of our thoughts, and I would recommend that you go and read the blog that Eddie has written. It's really, really good. And so please have a look at that, and I'll put the links on the notes. But we do want to know what other people think. So again, we've got prizes from Cheer Charge. We've got another 20 flapjacks to give out. And so we've given our first 2 prizes over the last 2 weeks. So there's another one for this one. And so what sort of things are we looking for, Eddie, that we'd like to hear from people about this subject?
Well, I love hearing about people's personal experiences. So I'll pop a post on Facebook about a time when I've been flexible in my training and the result of it, if that's good or bad. But I'd really like to hear maybe during a training plan or a training cycle, or in a race when things haven't gone as well as planned, or you've reached. I talk a bit about in the blog about seeing ahead to see the barriers, and you've changed your training, or you've changed your perhaps your goal during a race, and what the outcome of that has been, good or bad. And again, you know, maybe what you've learned from that as well, because if you then scroll down and read people's comments, there's such a wealth of knowledge and experience. Perhaps newbies to ultra running will look through that and go, God, I mean, you know, there's all these people in the same boat, and everybody sort of experiencing the same things, and getting stronger from them. So yeah, perhaps, you know, something in training that you've changed and has been good, and you've learned from it and come away as a better runner. So yeah, I'll pop a post on Facebook today, and look forward to hearing people's thoughts and wise words. It's the wise words that we
The
love.
wise words. Excellent. And the closing date for that will be 5 o'clock on Thursday, the 10th of September. So people have got just under a week to get their thoughts in. Now, and that leads on very well, actually, to our main interview for this episode. There was no, we decided we would do an interview this week rather than review a race, because there weren't many races that we saw last weekend. So just introduce our guest for this week, please, Eddie.
So when I was talking about flexibility this week, there was somebody that sprang to mind straight away, and it was Kat Simpson, who's a good friend of mine, a GB 24-hour ultra runner. Her running kudos speaks for itself. She's the second fastest woman at Spartathlon, the GUCR record holder, but she's also now started her nursing career, and she spent the last few months working with COVID patients, and now she's working in ICU. And so I wanted to talk to her about how 2020 has looked for her, completely changed to what she had planned. Her main race was cancelled, and I also love the fact she has no ego. She's really humble. You'll hear it in the interview. I try to get out of her like how incredible she is as a runner and as a person, and how she manages it all, and she makes it all sound quite easy and this happens. But she's put in a lot of work. So it's really interesting here talking to somebody who's so humble but is so talented, and we look forward to following her when races start happening again next year.
Yeah, I was part of that interview. We did it together, but I was more of a silent partner. I just asked a few questions, our lightning questions at the end, and I just found it fascinating. It was really interesting just hearing what Kat had to say. So we hope you really enjoyed this episode. It's this interview. It lasts about 30 minutes or so. So I hope you enjoy.
Today, I'm really lucky to be joined by one of GB's mega ultra running superstars, Kat Simpson. She is probably one of the most humblest, I want to say quiet, but she's not quiet at all really once you get to know her, ultra runners on the scene. And I'm really happy she has agreed to talk to us today on Run to the Hills, not only about her fantastic running career to date, which I feel is only just getting started, but also about her last couple of months working for the NHS as a nurse, and I'm sure it's been quite a testing time for her. And as this podcast is all about flexibility this week, there's no one better than Kat, who's had to be very flexible and I'm sure very patient and understanding this year with both her training and her career. So I thought we'd just start. I might let Kat talk in a second. I thought we'd just start with a real brief intro of how we first met Kat, because we didn't meet running. We met very randomly doing our personal training qualification in a horrible underground gym, was it, in London?
Yeah, it was at like Earl's Court or one of those really nondescript places, wasn't it? In like some
and I knew I loved you from the moment I met you, because you were the only other person I've ever met that went anywhere with a running rucksack and a packet of wet wipes.
I think we were both commuting, weren't we?
Yeah, we would get there and everyone would be like beautiful gym bunnies, and we'd get there and have a quick wet wipe wash and then do the course.
I'm so happy you were there, because I've never felt so out of place. Everyone else was like, you know, buff, these kind of meatheads who were all like really into the gym, and I think we were both just like,
hey, we bossed the cardio. We were really good at anything where they said jump around and run, but we were just terrible when they said lift those heavy weights with the gym bunnies. But hey, so that's when I first met you, and you were just also, perhaps not just starting, but you were lesser known on the ultra running scene, but you were going down the personal training course for your career, and then everything sort of changed, your career direction changed, and also your running flourished. So perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about how that happened, where you sort of went from there, and where you are now.
Yeah, I think I kind of, that was about 5 years ago now, wasn't it? Or maybe even longer, probably longer ago.
I think it was longer. I think it was like 8 years ago.
Yeah, oh my God. I think I was kind of in that position at like towards the end of my 20s when I wanted to kind of do something else with my life, and I didn't really know what. So you know what it's like, doing a PT course is so easy, isn't it? You just literally give someone £1,000 over the internet and sign up to a course. And, yeah, it was interesting. I kind of I sort of didn't really use it in the end very much. I did a little bit, but I kind of changed job direction and then realized that doing something like nursing would be more along the lines of what was interesting. So I kind of took the plunge and started doing that probably a few years after that, and then went from there really.
And when was the sort of moment, because there's quite a big difference from being a personal trainer to being a nurse, did you have a sort of moment where you thought, yeah, I want to, because it's a vocation really, isn't it? You probably didn't even maybe realize it was a vocation until you were like covered in vomit and...
Yeah. No, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into with nursing either, but because something like that you have to kind of quit your job and actually do the course, and you know, rather than just going along for a few weekends to do the PT course. Not to say it's not, you know, I think you do have to really, if you want to do a career like that, you have to really kind of work very hard in a different way and, you know, build up your clients and everything. But nursing kind of seemed not easier, but yeah, I initially wanted to do something like teaching kind of special needs or something, and so that was the start. And then I kind of came to nursing and decided that was maybe more suited to like the flexibility and just doing something with a bit of a caring background. Yeah.
And so alongside, was it a degree you had to do for nursing?
Yeah, it was a master's actually, over 2 years. Okay.
So alongside when you were doing that, you also then started to take your running, would you say, a little bit more seriously?
Yeah, it probably was around that time, because, you know, being a student again means you have a lot more flexibility in your life. So it definitely worked quite well. Yeah, it did. It was a really good period I mean, I was obviously, well, I think I've realised now, being a nurse and being qualified, that you do have the responsibility, although at the time as a student nurse it seemed like hard work and I was learning. I was on placement all the time. It's kind of the sort of course which is like 50% placement, so I was going into lectures and I was on placement, so there was kind of pressure on you to show your best side in that aspect, but you weren't actually having the responsibility of looking after patients. So it definitely wasn't as stressful as being a qualified nurse, but it gave me the flexibility of being able to train a lot more than I am able to now, to be honest.
Yeah. So you did Grand Union Canal. Was that while you were training?
Yeah, that was actually. And then the next year I did Spartathlon, and that worked out quite well because I had about 2 months where I didn't have to work or be a student, so I just got to train full time and pretend I was a professional.
So what was the difference? What sort of different things did you do in your training that led to that sort of massive improvement from being, you won't mind me saying, you were just new to ultra running when I first met you. So what sort of things did you do differently in training that sort of took you up to that elite level in those long distance races?
Well, I suppose I kind of did get a lot of volume in, which I think kind of can work for a while, but I don't think it's especially sustainable. So I kind of was able to do like a good chunk of kind of 6 months, 90 to 100 miles a week for like Grand Union, which was fine alongside lectures and everything, and a lot of it was like run commuting and everything, and it sort of worked for Spartathlon as well. But then I think you do kind of get to a point where you have to be like, I've kind of got a coach now and he's quite good at probably fitting the same quantity into a slightly more like quality, so to speak. So I think now it can't really do as much, but that's probably not a bad thing. I think running that sort of volume is quite boring and takes up too much time.
You also got yourself into your two you won't mention it, but you got yourself into sub 3 hour marathon shape, which I think was sort of like a turning point for you, both in your physical development, but also perhaps in your mental belief in your abilities.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's a bit of a kind of a double-edged sword, things like that. I mean, I know that you've kind of been quite a fast sort of triathlete and a longer, shorter distance runner, but you know, it's great and I'm really pleased I did it. But I think I feel like I can't like repeat that. It's a bit frustrating. It's really sad.
It's hard,
you know,
because
when
you have
like,
to
a magic marker in the sand.
the specific sessions you have to do to get yourself into that sub 3 hour shape is hard to replicate if you're also then trying to run a really long distance or anything else. It's a very specific block of training, isn't it? Yeah, I feel the same, and I always feel I want to get myself back in that shape, but then trying to do extra long runs, or for me trying to run like really hilly routes, just the fatigue, getting the balance is really, really hard.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of it was like, I don't know, I'm definitely better at like racing when there's no sort of expectations on me. So like sub 3 was never the plan. It was always just a kind of like well, there's no pressure, you know. It was kind of 3 weeks before Spartathlon. It was just kind of a let's go out and see what happens. So now for me, I just feel like, I mean, I've only done one marathon since, I think, like a road marathon, and I think if I was aiming to kind of go faster, I would just stress out about, you know, wanting, if I was kind of trying to target a PB, like sometimes it's nice just to, I think I race better when I'm relaxed, basically, especially like marathon road distances, you know, putting pressure on yourself just often isn't conducive to.
Yeah, and I feel your best performances, they've come from you being you're not an unknown, but because you are so modest and though you are vocal on social media, it's more about your bunny and so you kind of, I feel you do really well in the huge races. You really do perform under pressure, but you do it from your own point of view. You know, you're not relying on a sponsor. You're not having to. It's all just come from catch rather than from the need to sort of earn money or the need to perform because, you know, someone said you need to do this. And I feel that since you've become a nurse, maybe that pressure as well, because you've got your nursing career, and running is even more of a hobby now rather than your sort of be all and end all.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to have a job which kind of is quite challenging and puts your running into perspective sometimes. And I definitely think during like COVID and lockdown, it's kind of put it on the back burner for a bit, but only because, you know, racing and everything, and just don't really quite know what's around the corner. But hopefully,
can you tell us a bit about what 2020 was going to look like for you initially before COVID, and then what it has looked like, and perhaps just a little bit edited highlights of what you've been doing working wise, and also how you've managed your training and how that's changed as well?
Yeah, so I was planning on I was quite lucky. I got to race in March, race. I kind of I did a marathon. And then I was planning on doing the Thames 500 in May, and that was obviously kind of postponed, cancelled. And I was also going to be doing the European Championships, the 24-hour championships. That was the plan, but that was kind of cancelled quite early on in the summer. So it's kind of, in terms of my training, it's been sort of fairly similar in a lot of ways, I think, because, you know, there were times when I was kind of, you know, I mean I don't think we ever would have been threatened with like local lockdowns here, but, you know, I don't know if you had that in France, but, you know, we kind of haven't had anything too strict here, but because I've been working all through it, I've kind of been like running to work as usual and doing everything fairly as I would do anyway, really. So I've got, I mean, racing's kind of started up again here now, which is good. I haven't really got any plans until January when I'm meant to be doing Arc of Attrition, 100. So, which I know, I think I entered it when it was so far away that the prospect of running in like wind and rain and dark didn't seem like such a horrible prospect, but now it's
let's face that. Let's think about that at Christmas time.
Yeah, I think we can just not think about it, because I was chatting to Robbie about it in terms of a training plan, and we were kind of saying it's only really like a 16-week training block away. I was like, really? Yeah, so that's fun. In terms of my kind of life working in the NHS. I mean, I've been, it's hard to kind of imagine it now. It was very, very busy. It was initially very quiet for a month. It was strangely quiet because I was working on an acute medical unit, which is normally just kind of fast paced. We get all the patients up from A&E, who are kind of admitted under a medical team or whatever, and they stay with us for just kind of a day or two to be assessed and then moved on to another ward. So it's very fast paced and people are kind of quite unwell potentially. So yeah, we had a period of about a month where I think people were just staying away from the hospital. It was really bizarre. They were kind of, obviously, this COVID was around in the community, but people just, because normally our kind of patient group is sort of heart attacks and a lot of kind of acute medical conditions, and just no one was coming in, and then suddenly we were just like hit with this sort of tsunami of sick COVID patients, and so for about a month or two it was completely hectic, and we were all kind of redeployed to ICU or COVID work, and then it kind of gradually died down, kind of in line with like the COVID graph on the TV. So then, and now we're kind of pretty much back to normal. So I'm working on intensive care now permanently, so it's a little bit less hectic than what I was doing before. But just wait and see what happens really for winter really.
So so from now on you haven't got any more races planned for this year, just maybe after Patrician at the end of January?
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, I might find some small marathons, some trail events maybe, but I don't know at the moment with shifts and being in a new job. I'm not really in any rush to kind of add another stressor into the mix really.
I love that about you, Kat, is that you can just be like, well, I'm just going to concentrate. So many people, if they're not fulfilling a training plan, they haven't got a race, they're not counting down the days, and you can just be like, yeah, I'm just going to concentrate on this at the moment, and the race will come to me when it's ready. And I think that's a really healthy attitude. You talked about your
sorry.
You talked about your run commute. You do most of your running commuting to and from work. How do you find that? I see the time that you commute and I know, she's going on a night shift or she's coming back. How do you find that running to and from a night shift? And can you give the listeners any tips who don't run commute and who perhaps could add that into their training plan? Because it's such a great use of time, isn't it? We're both big fans.
Yeah, honestly, I could write a book on run commuting. So I've been doing it since I started running. So how boring is that? Yeah, like since I kind of worked in like an office, more kind of set up, and I've just commuted over such a range of different, amenities when you get into the office. It's but yeah, at the moment it's fine. Actually, at the moment it's amazing. I've just started a new job with where I wear scrubs, so I don't even have to carry anything in. It's the dream. I'm so happy. And because we're kind of
why you chose nursing.
Well, I was in a uniform like for the first couple of years, so I was like screwing up a little dress and some tights into a pack, looking like a scarecrow. So yeah, being in scrubs is amazing, and we're also having all our food provided at the moment, which is quite nice. So like I don't really have to run commute with anything, which is like it's quite good. My commute, it's about 5 miles or so at the moment. It's about 3 if I go like a direct route, but it's always nice to go along the river and have a slightly more scenic route and something that actually adds a bit more to your training, volume. So that's quite nice. And being in the hospital, like there's always showers and everything, which is lovely. I mean, they're a bit of a mixed bag, but I can't really complain.
And how do you find it refreshes you after a night shift? You feel better having run home, or do you sometimes find yourself toppling into the Thames?
It really depends. Like some nights I just feel horrendous. It does kind of feel like when you're doing like a 24-hour race or a really long distance race, and the next day like just everything feels heavy and horrible. I've kind of tried experimenting. Sometimes I'll try and eat something in the morning or just have some caffeine, but then you don't want to kind of do too much and get home and not be able to sleep for the next
Yeah.
one. So it's still a bit of a work in progress, really, what works. It's kind of quite nice and refreshing, especially when it's really sunny and, I'm running along the river and it's like the sun's come up and it's, there's worse places to be running, but it's never like an easy run. Especially I just kind of use it as a recovery, an easy pace.
I was going to ask you that. Do you ever try and do a session, or is it always just like literally A to B? Yeah,
never. Like, and even the day I tend to do blocks of nights, and I'll just after the last one run home and not do anything for the day, not try and like sleep and then go out for a run or anything. I've just learned that there's no point.
Have you done an ultra since you started working nights and had to run through the nights yet?
Yeah, actually I've done the 24-hour, like a couple of 24-hour races. I don't think it really makes me any better at them.
Oh, does it not? I wondered if you were like, hey, I'm just coming alive.
Yeah, I wish it definitely kind of means, I feel like it means I've got less excuses to kind of moan. I'm like, well, I do this all the time. It's my job, but it's never very nice, is it? I think I'm just getting old, and I like my sleep these days. And even sometimes with racing, the prospect of doing anything longer than like, a multi-day thing, or like, something like the spine, like that kind of drawn out thing, just makes me think, God, I'm really not sure I'm meant to go for more than like, into the second day. It's just, I think just sleep deprivation isn't really my forte.
I bet it would be. So what do you see yourself doing? Like, let's say the world goes relatively back to normal next year, sort of next year, the year after. Have you got any big, you smashed Spartathlon, you smashed the GUCR, you've sort of done two of the biggest ultra races that you can do. What sort of, have you got a bucket list of things you still want to go and put your stamp on?
Yeah, I would really like to do Badwater, actually. That's kind of like, that's one that's
your
always
pale skin, Kat.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not Debbie, am I? I'm not like I'll be all right. Sorry, Debbie.
Oh no.
I think she wants to do it too, though.
Yeah, she said she wanted to do it too.
It's just one of the, it's definitely a bucket list race. I had kind of thought maybe next year, but I don't know whether doing real international stuff at the moment.
Yeah,
I'm kind of happy. I think I feel happy now to probably do some stuff in the UK, but I'm really not that in any much of a rush to get on a plane to do stuff. That, and I'd kind of like to do another one of the canal races. Maybe I do kind of like the long,
relentless,
sort of 150-ish mile distances. It's quite a nice, not too long, but long enough that it's.
And you've done really well in the 24-hour races so far. Have you got goals to go a little bit further, or to have the perfect race?
Yeah, I would love to, kind of, for like the second crack at it for the running for GB. I'd really like to have gone a bit further. There you are. Yeah, I'd love to go a little bit further. It's just those kind of races are really made in the last 4 to 8 hours, and I find that once, like, I think everyone's stomach goes a bit in those kind of races, but once I get sick and I can't keep food down, I just feel sorry for myself. I'm really pathetic, and I I don't stop. I can keep going round, but I lose my focus of I want to get to 130, 230, and I'm like, oh, that'll do. So I don't know, I need to find a way of maybe racing someone or being a bit more competitive.
I think that's a hard thing. That's such the difference, isn't it, between a point-to-point race and a lap race? The mental focus is completely different, and perhaps the way you'd work through an issue on a point-to-point race is quite different from a lap race, also because you've got people there all the time that you can be really weak and pathetic, whereas on a point-to-point race, you just got to suck it up, haven't you? Because your crew are carry on. So can you tell me? Can you tell me when something has gone wrong in an ultra, and you've managed to turn it round? Your sort of lowest point. You've done some massive races. You must have had some mega highs, but also some mega lows. And is there one in particular where you're like, oh yeah, that was really low, but I managed to pull myself around and change the outcome?
I think, I don't know, I think like ultra running is such a roller coaster, isn't it, when you're doing long races? So I've always, and I've had, you know, like when you vomit on yourself or do something where you think it can't really get any worse, but then you just have to kind of keep going. And like the end of Spartathlon was pretty miserable with the rain and everything, but then you're kind of at the finish and you haven't really got much more to go. So I don't know, I haven't had any like anything really, really bad happen, fortunately, like getting hit by a car or anything. Yeah, that would be, what's that?
No, I was going to say, you've always just managed to, and it shows in like your race performances, is that you've just managed to always continue whatever's been thrown at you. You've just continued moving at a really good pace. And you just carried it on. When others have dropped, you've been like cats, just carried on, smiling, eating baby compots. So just a couple more things I want to ask you, but one thing I love about you on the social media is your normality that you bring to this crazy sport, and you're always doing just really normal, but really you're really cool. I always like, oh, I wish I was more like Kat. You'll do stuff like going to concerts with your dad or eating a massive burger. And the other thing, you're a real vocal support for women doing ultra running. And I know you do quite a bit of that in London. You get it, not actually at the moment, obviously, but getting women into ultra running. And I just wondered if that was perhaps like a secret to your success, is that you just live you're an elite athlete. I know you'd hate me saying that, but you're just a really normal person as well. You have a really good diet. You go out, you drink beer, and sort of running stays as your hobby. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do kind of find social media all a bit of a bore, really, isn't it? Like, it's also fake. I think people like maybe somewhere along the way, like I think I post something about running like once every 6 months or something, and then people probably sort of follow me and expect that, and then I just post pictures of my rabbit and like strangest dogs out when I'm out on a run, and they're like, what is this crap? So yeah, it's like honestly don't really like know what to do with it anymore.
Yeah, but we see people like Mimi recently posted that thing saying, you know, she can't race anymore because she's just pushed herself to the limits. And I think like slightly maybe social media, the pressure of running has sort of all consumed her, as I think it does a lot of elite athletes. And I think the fact that you have this completely different life with your husband, that you go and you do normal stuff, and I think a lot of people could learn from that. But you know, the rigidity to a training plan and a race is perhaps not always the healthiest way to follow. And just like you said, you know, you haven't got any races, so you're just carrying on ticking over rather than being constantly in that sort of tunnel. But you can put yourself in that tunnel when you need to.
Yeah, I think running is like, and I've certainly felt this during COVID, it can like, sometimes it can feel a bit sort of self-indulgent, can't it? Just chasing, you know, it is. And I think I'm quite a solitary runner as well. I kind of go out and do a lot of my training on my own. You do really end up in your own head a lot, and like kind of that's quite boring in a lot of ways, and it's quite like not very social media friendly. Like, I mean, I'm a bit of a I do take my phone out on runs, and I'd like taking photos, and you know, I'm a bit of a loser in that aspect, but like it's definitely kind of not yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it is like, it just can seem quite sort of selfish, can't it, sometimes, running, and like
just having other stuff in your life is so important, isn't it? And to maintain relationships with the rest of your family. I know your dad, he's a legend in the ultra running, but you do other stuff with him as well. So something I'm really interested in, Kat, is where do you see yourself in like 30 years time when we're really old and wrinkly?
I'll be like in my 60s. I'd like to still
be 60s, John. Did you hear that? So old.
No, it's just, I must admit, recently I've been kind of coming to the terms recently with the fact I'm kind of getting towards 40, and it's made me kind of like think like, God, have I achieved things in my life that I wish like I should have done by now? Because I've always felt like I'm still young, but I don't know. I
heard this really cool stuff that you should constantly think about your future self and project where you're going. So now I think about like, okay, where does my Eddie as her future self want to be? in like when I'm old and haggard and I'm going to be on my Scottish farm with all my retired racehorses. And so you have to think about your journey going there. Do you see yourself maybe on a Scottish farm in 30 years?
Yeah, I'd love to be living somewhere like that, actually. Me and John have talked about kind of moving to somewhere really remote and just being in like a little log cabin, just something kind of like with some like miniature Shetland ponies and some goats maybe, and maybe some sheep and Highland cows.
Oh, and just your GB kit framed. That's what I used to do.
Yes, my house is already like that.
So Kat, I think John has got some, he is longing to ask his quickfire questions. He's managed to not to make a noise throughout us twittering through this whole interview.
Gone to sleep.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed that, Kat. It's been lovely just to get to know you a bit and find out a bit more. I was a little bit concerned when you think that 60's old, because that's where I am.
No, sorry.
No. So we just thought we'd finish with, and we've just got some quick fire questions, and you can take as long as you want to answer them, but I'll fire them at you. Okay. So road or trail?
I'd say trail, but the reality of it is I do kind of 90% of my running on road, sadly.
Okay. Do you prefer sun or rain?
Sun, definitely.
Okay. And hot or cold?
I'd say hot, but then we've had a heat wave here and I hated it. So although I think cold is kind of nicer for running, isn't it? It's just once you get through the initial 10 minutes, it's more pleasant.
Yeah. And favorite thing to listen to when running? Do you like to listen to music, podcasts, or nothing?
Or music, but if I'm kind of doing if I was doing sort of 3-4 hours, I'd probably put podcasts on. But I like my running playlists for short distances. I love my drum and bass. That's my current go-to for, I think like 4 hours of that would send me over the edge. I'd like turn into Dan.
Okay. And if you need a podcast to listen to, then I recommend Run to the Hills. How many pairs of trainers do you own?
God, I have so many. I've been trying to retire them recently, but I've got a few pairs which I've just got to around 800 miles in, and they seem to be getting better. So I'm never sure when to retire them. I'm quite religious about tracking on Strava, like, you know, what I've done in them, but then I'd like keeping hold of them. Yeah.
So we got a number then. You haven't answered the question.
Probably about 15.
15,
maybe.
Okay.
I kind of have about 5-7 for trail and the rest road. Maybe 10 to 15 probably. I've got a few pairs that I should retire now probably, but I'm just kind of like, I've kind of grown into them.
Excellent. And what's the longest you've gone without washing your kit?
I have to admit, I do tend to wash it every day, just because I have to get my nurses' uniforms through the system quite quickly, so I'll just chuck it all in the wash and do it kind of like every day. Not every day, like after every wear. It depends. I mean, I am a sniffer though. I'm kind of can I get away with wearing this again? And if I can, then I will do. It's not based on hygiene.
Sniffer. I love it.
That's a good one. What's the strangest thing you've seen on a run?
Like you get some good sights in the canal, sort of mobility scooters in there and stuff like that.
In the canal?
Yeah. And I kind of ran on a stretch of the Grand Union Canal quite a lot, and it's always interesting. Lots of alcohol.
Did you check there wasn't anyone in the mobility?
Should have done.
Yeah.
I would lose my nursing license.
Yeah. And what's the best prize that you've seen at a race, either you've received or you've seen?
Probably something food related or alcohol related. I can't think of anything in particular, but it would have to probably be something beer related, I think.
Okay. And the final question is, what's your favourite distance to race?
I mean, something like between a marathon and 100 miles. I do quite like 100 miler. It's kind of as an ultra distance. It's a good solid distance, but you know, you can't do it too often. And I do like a marathon though. It's kind of a good kind of point, you know, between speed and endurance. I think I'd say that more if I was fast at the moment, but it's definitely a good test of, you know, speed endurance.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for those questions and answers, and thank you so much for the interview. I think we both really appreciated it and enjoyed having with Eddie. It's been lovely to have you on as a guest, and we'll maybe get you back on once you've done the Arc of Attrition. That would be a good one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I need something to talk about, something new.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely to meet you.
Yeah, and you. Thank you very much, and appreciate it very much. Yeah.
Lovely to see you. See you later.
Bye. Hope you enjoyed that interview with Kat Simpson. And we'll just tell you a little bit about what we've got going on next week. We're going to follow the next part of the Grand Slam, Centurion Grand Slam 100 mile. It's the second race in the 4-race series. It's the Thames Path 100. We've got some good interviewees lined up already. I'm going to be chatting with Nikki Griffin. Anyone who does any of the Centurion races will know her, perhaps with a little bit of fear, but she works very closely in the health and safety world. So I'm going to be talking to her about how races look different, what Centurion have done to change to make sure it's COVID friendly and COVID safe. So I'll be chatting to her next week. I think that'll be really interesting, especially for people who haven't raced yet and might be a little bit nervous about what racing looks like. So Nikki will have some good tips, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I've lined up an interview with Sonny and with Giacomo, and both of them are doing the Grand Slam. So they did the North Downs Way 100, and this will be their second race. And I'm going to interview them together, and I thought it'd be really interesting just to get them to share their thoughts and how their training's going. One's a big Sheffield United fan, one's a big Leeds United fan, so there might be a little bit of football chat as well, maybe on the way. And I'm also hoping. Yeah, I'm also hoping to chat to the men's and women's winner. Obviously, we don't know who they are yet, but if they're willing to come on, we'll chat to them as well. So look forward to the episode next week, and I look forward to chatting to you next Friday, Eddie. And I hope you have a good week of training. Maybe not too good, but get back out there. I will.
I'm going back on the road for another long run. We've got the Mont Blanc rally here this weekend, so there's racing cars, so all the roads are shut, so my running is a little we can't get down into town, so my running will be a little shorter this weekend, but yeah, I'll have another long run adventure, no doubt, to tell you about.
Yeah. Well, I must admit, because we went to the club on Monday to celebrate our 35th wedding anniversary, so we didn't do anything really. So we're going out for a run tomorrow. I think we're going to run from Balmahar to Rowan and then back together. And then there's a lovely pub called the Oak Tree that a lot of us use. It's a really nice restaurant and really nice pub, and they're very supportive of the West Highland Way and runners. So we're going to go in for a meal afterwards there. So
they don't mind you in stinky kit, is what you're saying.
We've got our van, so we are going to have we're going to have a quick wet wipe wash before we go in.
Romance isn't dead in this marriage, is it?
I know. Great. Okay, well, thank you very much, and thanks for listening and watching, everybody. And we look forward to seeing you next week. So bye for now. Bye for me.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.